How's it going, everybody? This is the first video that I will be uploading to this channel, and I'm just going to be talking a little bit about my love of Pokemon as a media franchise, but more so the physical things that exist that kind of supplement the games themselves that you play. One of the big things that I have always loved when it comes to physical Pokemon media is the strategy guides, like the one that you see me flipping through here. This is the one that released for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. It's kind of limited in its offerings in that the Pokédex, it has all of the Pokemon up to Gen 4, at least the ones that are actually included in Diamond and Pearl, but that's it. And even then, it doesn't really talk too much about each Pokemon at length. It just kind of gives you some basic details regarding like where to find them in the game, which is really useful for a guide like this to have that kind of information. You know, you would hope that it would have that kind of stuff within it, but as a kid, I actually didn't have the Diamond and Pearl guide. I had gotten the guide that came with Pokemon Platinum that you can see here, and one of the things that I loved so much about this guide was, for one, the sheer size of it. I mean, it was absolutely massive for for a book that you would be reading to supplement a game like Pokemon Platinum. But one of the really cool things is that it had so many more details about, you know, items that you could find. It even has like a list of exactly what to do step by step if you want to play kind of alongside the guide. And a lot of the times as a kid, when you have a guide like this, you are kind of tempted to just do things in order. It's just the way that the guide is designed so that it makes sure that you don't miss a single item, so that you don't miss a single route that might have a trainer that you can battle. You know, all that kind of stuff is in a guidebook like this, and the Pokédex itself is so much more fleshed out. I mean, for one, it's the entire national Pokédex up to Gen 4. I mean, it had all the Pokemon from Gens 1 to 4. At least I think it has every single Pokemon. I think it's missing Arceus, which at this point, I guess they hadn't really... I mean, if I can remember correctly, it doesn't have Arceus. I think, yeah, it ends at Shaman. And it has Giratina, it's got Dialga, Palkia, but you don't see Arceus in there because I guess the Azure Flute that was initially going to be the item that you could use to go up to the Hall of Origin or whatever it was called at the Spear Pillar. I mean, that never released, but look at just how much more detail this Pokédex has compared to the previous guide. I mean, this is just crazy. And I love this stuff. This is something that I personally grew up with. This is not the guide that I had as a kid. I ended up losing that guide at some point in my teenage years with a bunch of other stuff that I had kept from when I was younger, but I was able, thankfully, to find this guide on eBay. It is a little beat up. A lot of them are. It's kind of hard to find a guide at a reasonable price that is also in, you know, good to really good condition. Most often you're getting something like this that's got some wear and tear on the cover, but the pages themselves seem to still be in really good quality. One of the things that I love so much is just how the books themselves were so useful, but also the amount of content within them I found really, really interesting. So this right here is it's kind of like a scrapbook journal kind of thing that I designed for Pokemon Emerald specifically, because I'm going to be doing a playthrough of Emerald Seaglass, this new ROM hack that came out that it's kind of reminiscent of some of the designs that are found in the Platinum and the Diamond and Pearl strategy guides, in that, you know, you see the sprites of the Pokemon there in the front. But yeah, I didn't design the cover. I want to make that really clear. That was designed by an artist who had made that, you know, something like 10 years ago, I think. So I just found it online. I modified it a bit to say journal. I do want to point out that if Penguit, the artist, ends up seeing this, please, you know, let me know if you don't want your cover to be used on this. This is purely for personal use. I don't plan on selling a single thing that goes into this. This is just purely a passion thing. So all the files for something like this will be available online. But yeah, this is the prototype. If any artwork from any, artist ends up in here, or any fan artist, I do apologize. My goal was to try and use as much official art as possible. So all this berry art that you see on the front and on the back, all the sprite work, that's all intended to be by Nintendo. The only thing that I used any kind of fan content for was the cover, because I just felt like it perfectly fit something like this. And the binding for this prototype was kind of simple. I just used a couple of staples, but for the final version, I did end up going with something called a saddle stitch, I think is the proper term, where you just put some staples in down the middle, and it ends up, holding everything really well together. I named my character Ace in this playthrough. I've only just started it, and I was able to get a few images of some sprite work that I found online. Again, this is all purely for personal use, so I don't, none of this is intended for anything that's going to be sold or for any kind of monetary value. Here I decided to pick Trico for my starter. I mentioned there in the journal that it's because Sceptile, as far as I can recall, Sceptile is given the dragon subtype, which I think is really cool. I guess it gets it in its mega form, but it now gets it in its standard form. Here I added a few dedicated spots for notes in the journal. Those little areas where you see that little Pikachu with the paintbrush, that image from Pokemon Art Academy. Again, I'm trying to use as much art directly from other games and other media. So those little Pikachu with paintbrush spots are intended to be like dedicated sketch areas in the journal. Here I put Wally and Steven together. I felt like that was good contrast with like a more novice trainer and then with like a master trainer. I see a lot of like stuff in the strategy guides where they added different things like Pokeballs and items around, so I decided to incorporate a lot of different berries. There we have Plusle and Minun down the middle. Every single page should have a different Pokeball as well. Down here I think is another dedicated little sketch area. And this last page was intended as like a rip out or a cutout page where you can actually take the trainer or the starter that you pick when you start your journey. You can kind of cut that out and then place it in the front, so that way you don't have to go and like get a different picture or draw it yourself if you just want to get started real quick. So yeah, I designed this with the goal of playing Pokemon Emerald Seaglass and just kind of documenting the journey, documenting the process of playing the game, because for one, it's been many years since I initially played Emerald, and in that time I haven't really touched on the different ROM hacks that exist. I mean, I've booted them up and played them as far as like maybe the first gym in some cases, but this is going to be the first time where I really go and I play Emerald all the way through. And it's not vanilla Emerald, it's new, but it's very much grounded in what Emerald is. And so I feel like that's going to be a really, really fun time, because it is a ROM hack, but it's not going to be something so far removed from the original. One of the inspirations, probably what I would call the main inspiration for this whole channel and this type of content, is a person that goes by Nostalgic Nighthawk on YouTube. He's definitely my largest inspiration. There's a lot of other people, a lot of other content creators that have inspired me and have kind of brought me to this point where I want to try and create content for Pokemon and talk about my passion for Pokemon. But I'd say most recently, definitely Nostalgic Nighthawk has made me very aware of how much I like this type of content, where people are talking about physical media like strategy guides and the impact that those things had on them when they were kids, and how that factors into the way that they experience Pokemon today, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a reason that his channel is called Nostalgic Nighthawk. It's because the whole point of his content is to recognize the significance that nostalgia has on them today. And I think that's really cool. I think that's incredibly cool. I don't know how much of my content will, be about nostalgia specifically, but I know that a lot of it will be driven and motivated by my own nostalgia, however much I'm aware of it or not, you know? So that I think is something that I wanted to definitely point out, is the fact that his content that I've been watching quite a bit of recently is what has inspired me to just make my own videos about my Pokemon journey and, you know, documenting it long term rather than trying to, you know, speed through it as quickly as possible. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I definitely watch a lot of that content myself. I mean, I watch a lot of people do Pokemon speedruns. I watch a lot of people do shiny hunting, especially shiny hunting. I love watching that. But, you know, one of the things that I haven't really gotten into in my many years playing Pokemon and loving Pokemon is the deeper competitive aspect of it. I mean, I played a little bit of competitive X and Y back when the games first released, but nothing too serious. I did very limited EV training, and I even had friends that would play Emerald and do their EV training there and then trade the Pokemon up to Gen 4 and then Gen 5 to get them into Gen 6 with X and Y. But after X and Y, I don't know, it kind of became something that I tossed by the wayside because I would play a lot more Super Smash Brothers, particularly Melee, but also a little bit of like Smash on the Wii U, and then Smash on Switch. Smash Ultimate released in 2018, some years after, and so I kind of got into that for a while still playing Melee. And Pokemon has just been something that I have, I don't know, put on the back burner. Kind of, I continue to keep up with the game. So like, if you were to ask me at any given time, you could ask me like what the most recent Pokemon game was, I knew what it was and what the discourse around it was. But I don't really play the newer games. I haven't played Scarlet and Violet beyond, like I mentioned before, like with a lot of ROM hacks, just kind of getting my starter and maybe getting to the first gym. And in Violet, I haven't even gotten to the first gym. It was just, there was a lot of disappointment that I had with the game and how it performed. But I've heard that the game itself, like once you get into the gameplay loop and once you're actually exploring and doing all that, that it is fun, that people do enjoy it. So I know that I'm going to get around to it, but I don't know. I was expecting it to have the same energy that Pokemon Legends Arceus had. And I know that even that game wasn't perfect by any means when it came to the features that they added and the way that they changed up the game as they, you know, finally moved towards this like more open, not open world necessarily, but this more open 3D style of game. More similar to, I guess some people have kind of compared it to Monster Hunter with the way that it is open, but just not entirely. I thought that was really cool. And I played Legends Arceus and I got decently into the game. I've played, I think, maybe 20 to 30 hours of it. So not a crazy amount, but I've had my fun with it. I occasionally jump into it to catch a few Pokemon and try to fill out that Pokédex. But I guess just coming back and playing Emerald and kind of grounding myself in that experience is something that I have been wanting to do for a while. And my hope is that with this journal and with the content that I post on this channel, that other people will find that interesting in some respect, that they will be able to kind of join me on this journey. However many people find that interesting, I don't even know. So the main thing for me is just recognizing that the content is something that I want to make because I just want to enjoy myself with the process and not really focusing on anything else. That for me is a central principle of the content that I'm going to try to make. In the past, I had made, you know, smaller videos about Pokemon and about other things like Smash and Call of Duty and just things, Minecraft, things that I enjoyed in the past. I could list all kinds of different various types of content that I tried to put together and publish on YouTube. But I think this for me is different because it comes from a different place. It comes from a place of trying to recognize how much Pokemon means to me as like this franchise that exists, this larger than life IP that has touched so many different people's hearts for so many different reasons, and what that what that relationship that I have to this kind of media is, what that relationship is, but also like how I can recognize my love of Pokemon and then extend it outwards. And I guess that's what this journal was for, because I hope that if I get some utility out of it, then maybe some other people will. One way that I think would be a great use for this journal is if you have like a child yourself or a younger family member who's maybe just getting into Pokemon. I think this would be a great way to introduce them to Pokemon and giving them this opportunity to document their journey, because one of the things that I hope to accomplish is that I'll look back at this journal, you know, a few months after the playthrough is done, maybe even a few years, and just kind of get a feel for what that journey was like, you know, what that playthrough was like, really understanding what I felt, why I made the decisions that I made, why I caught the Pokemon that I caught, and like really getting an understanding of what that felt like beyond when I played it, I guess. And that's not unique to me. There's plenty of other people that have, you know, continued to look back at their playthroughs in a more reflective manner. I mean, that's by no means unique to me, and it's not something that I came up with, but once I realized that would have some value to me, I said, all right, I really would like to do that. So my hope is just that you enjoy this content. I'll be updating this channel with some footage of me playing Emerald Seaglass, and then possibly moving into, you know, Generation 4 after this, and 5, because I played up to Black and White, but I never did play Black and White 2, so that for me would be a completely new experience, something that I think would be a lot of fun and that I would love to document on here. So yeah, I just hope you guys enjoy, and that we can kind of experience this particular set of journeys together in a way that is meaningful for me and for you guys. So take care.